Thank you for that session, sir. For the next session, I would like to call upon Shri Mahendra Kumar Bajpai, an advocate in the Supreme Court of India. Advocate Mahendra Kumar Bajpai is India's leading authority on medical laws, is a practicing counsel of the Supreme Court. He is an honorary director of the Institute of Medicine and Law and author of Law of Criminal Liability and Medical Negligence, which is currently the only published work on the subject in India. As the editor of the monthly law reporter, Medical Law Cases for Doctors, he is responsible for the collection and collation of the biggest organized database of medical laws in India. Known for his forceful arguments in courts, Advocate Bajpai is also a reputed speaker commanding the respect of both the legal fraternity and the medical community. His extraordinary ability to explain the most complex legal dictums in a layman's language make his speeches not only interesting, but also of practical use. He is a frequent panelist in various medical legal seminars and symposiums on the subject, and his advice to doctors in difficult times is useful and unique. Welcome, and we're looking forward to your presentation, sir.
Thank you, Nipun, for those kind words. My PPT is visible?
Yes, sir.
Moving?
Yes, sir.
Moving?
Yes, all good. Yes, all good, sir.
Dear Dr. Nagpal ji, Ashwini ji, all my friends from Medico Legal Action Group. Whenever Dr. Nagpal calls me, I am always in a big trouble. A dilemma, if you all, if I can put it in the right words. Medico Legal Action Group happens to be a place where doctors are there and in equal number, lawyers are also there. So now what to speak? Whether one should speak to the doctors or to the lawyers or to both. And friends, before preparing my speech, I gave a call to the organizing secretary, my very good friend, Advocate Dr. Hitesh Bhatt. And I asked him, Baba, who are going to be there? I know you are there, Dr. Neeraj Nagpal is there, Ashwini Setiaji is there, but are there advocates? Ultimately, I earn my bread and butter from advocates, not from doctors. They brief me in court. He was very clear, it's advocate, it would be all doctors who would be there. Friends, the topic which has been given to me, it seems very legal. Res judicata, double jeopardy and more. This is the legal part. But then the other part of the topic is how to save medicos from multiple prosecution. And friends, let us understand why we are here today, why I am speaking on this topic in this MLAG annual conference. Friends, doctors today in India are subjected to multiple forums, multiple courts, for negligence, for malpractice, whether it is legally correct, whether it is legally not correct, whether it is good for the society, whether it is not good for the society. And that is why we are going to discuss two legal principles. And friends, you will be surprised, these legal principles are there since long back, Vedic times. And the debate has been continuously going on. Whether this is right or whether this is not right. Whether this is dharma, whether this is adharma. Very broadly, I will come to that, but before I start, I'll just explain these two words. Res judicata means, in simple language, once a case has been argued, has been decided by a court, it should not be argued again. That is res judicata in the most simple terms. Double jeopardy, you are tried for an offense. You are prosecuted. You are held guilty, you are not held guilty. After that, let there be no prosecution again. Once and for all, let all this close. These are these two terms. And friends, see the importance of these terms. Just put yourself in a situation where your neighbor just wants to make your life miserable. He files a case for trespass. One of the trees in your compound trespasses his compound. And after the court gives a judgment, he again files another suit for the same thing. He may couch it in different languages. So should you be permitted to keep on defending one suit after the other? There would be anarchy. There would be no rule of law. Think of a situation. One of your competitors, one of your enemies, he files a false criminal complaint against you. Once you are acquitted in that case, he again on the same cause of action, on the same facts. He again files a criminal case, albeit under other provision of law. Another 20 years gone. So how do you stop it? Any sensible law would forbid second trial, second conviction. Disputes must come to an end. Any civil society would want that. Friends, these concepts, they are in the books. If you read Mimamsa Sutra by Rishi Jaimini, he talks about Purva Nyaya. If the dispute has been before the arbitrators decided once and for all, put a full stop. That is what Rishi Jaimini says. There would be dispute on how long back this Mimamsa Sutra was written, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 years back. Let us not go into that controversy. But at least on one thing, the historians all over the world are very clear. The Code of Hammurabi was written in 1792 BC, before Christ, 3,800 years back. And that Code of Hammurabi also says, law forbids the same man to be tried twice on the same issue. Fast forward 2,000 years, 527 BC, the great Roman Emperor Justinian, he calls all the learned men and he says, let us codify all the law. 3 volumes are written, Corpus Juris Civilis. And one of the precepts is the governor should not permit the same person to be again accused of a crime of which he has been acquitted. Friends, I'll share a very interesting story with you, where a passage from the Old Testament was quoted. Not even God judges twice for the same act. He will judge you once on the judgment day. He will pronounce judgment. You go to hell or you go to heaven. And this was quoted somewhere in 1164. There was a great fight between an archbishop in England and the King of England, King Henry II. great-grandson, I forgot the name of that emperor, was known as the Conqueror. So there was a quarrel between the church and the king at that point in time. If you delve into history of England, the king wanted all the powers with him. The clergies, they wanted all the powers with them. And there were certain edicts, certain orders by the king, which were challenged by the clergymen. And this gentleman, Thomas Becket, was one of them. The king wanted all powers in hand. The clergymen were opposing it. One of the laws on which both of them fought was where King Henry, he enacted a law. There were two courts at that time. One court was run by clergymen, by all the archbishops and bishops, and another court which was run by the king. And the king said, fine. Even if the church courts have prescribed a punishment, that man can again be convicted. That man can again be prosecuted by the king's court. And it was opposed by Becket. He quoted Saint Jerome. He quoted the Old Testament. And he said, no, this is forbidden. This can't happen. There can't be more than one judgment for the same act. And the king then had to say, will anyone get rid of this turbulent priest? Four of his lords, they went, they killed him. There was a big controversy. Later on, the king apologized also. So friends, this is a controversy. This is a rule of law, which is very important. Okay. But nevertheless, it has been in controversy. Friends, the current law, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 14.7, double jeopardy is barred. European Convention. Dr. Na. European Convention on Human Rights, Article 4.1, Protocol 7, Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union, Article 38.1c. All these bar double jeopardy. Fifth Amendment of United States. We look upon the Constitution of United States as the pillar of liberty. It says, nor shall any person be subject to. These principles have been included in the constitutions of some countries. And in some countries, law has been made, statutes have been made by the parliaments, by their legislature, where these two principles have been implemented. Friends, one more small deviation, or rather I'll narrate an incident. Important one, important landmark, especially in modern legal history. A young black Negro was murdered in United Kingdoms, probably London if I'm not wrong, Stephen Lawrence. And the police did not do the investigations properly because white boys were involved. And the ones who were involved, they were all acquitted. There was an uproar. The government had to appoint Macpherson committee, and the report of the Macpherson committee, it recommended that double jeopardy rule should be abrogated in murder cases. Second trial must be permitted if fresh and viable new evidence comes to light. And friends, United Kingdom was forced to change its penal statutes. The Criminal Justice Act of 2003 now gives, if new, fresh and viable evidence comes into existence, then a retrial can happen. Friends, we will now discuss the law that exists in India. Res judicata. Generally, generally it is viewed as something that is applicable only in civil laws. But if you see res judicata and double jeopardy, the basic underlying principle happens to be the same. No one should be taxed twice for one wrong. Section 11 of the Code of Civil Procedure 1908, it has the relevant provisions. No court shall try any suit or issue in which the matter directly and substantially in issue has been directly and substantially in issue in a former suit between the same parties. So if the controversy was directly in issue between the same parties, both of them are now barred from re-agitating it. No second suit. This is res judicata. Now double jeopardy, something that is applicable to criminal law where punishment is there. In 1897, the General Clauses Act has the provision, section 26. Provision as to offenses punishable under 2 or more enactments. Bring one trial. That is what the General Clauses Act says. Code of Criminal Procedure 1973, section 73. It says persons once acquitted or convicted cannot be tried for the same offense. So once a full-fledged trial happens, you cannot be convicted or acquitted for the same offense again. Constitution of India, in the chapter of fundamental rights, Article 22 says, no person shall be prosecuted and punished for the same offense more than once, only once. There is a slight difference. I pray I should be able to explain it to you in simple terms. A person who has been prosecuted means a trial has happened, a criminal trial has happened. And if he was acquitted, a retrial will not happen, but this happens to be a statutory right, a legal right, a written right, but not a fundamental right. Because this is covered by the Code of Criminal section 300. But if a person has been prosecuted and punished, then there can be no trial. It is violation of the fundamental rights of that person, because after prosecution and punishment, retrial is not permitted under the Constitution of India, Part 3, fundamental rights. Friends, I don't know how many of you remember, there was a young lady by the name of Monica Bedi, a film actress. She had somehow fabricated her passport in Portugal. The Portugal court tried her and convicted her for the offense of fabricating her passport. She underwent a jail term of 2 years in Portugal. Later on, she was brought in India. Again, a trial went. And for fabricating an Indian passport, she was punished here. The Supreme Court of India in its judgment says, the 2.5 years that you have spent in Portugal jail, we will lessen that much. Because you cannot be prosecuted and punished for the same offense more than once. Prosecution has happened. The punishment in India is more. The remaining time you should take. Legal principles, broad ones on which these two legal principles rest. First one, a man should not be put to peril for the same offense twice. Once, yes, you must. But twice, no. Otherwise, there is no stopping this. It would be twice, thrice, 4 times. The second pillar, It is in the interest of the state that there should be an end to litigation. And friends, this would be important when we come to the other part of the topic. There should be an end to litigation. As far as cases of medical negligence are concerned, we do not see that end anywhere. 10, 20, 30 years. 1 court, 2 court, 3 court, 4 court. And these are precepts given from the Roman time, not now. They are there even in our Dharma Shastras. The third pillar, a judicial decision once made must be accepted as correct. Both the parties were there before the court. Both had an opportunity to bring evidence, to argue their points. Then accept it as correct. You can appeal it to the higher court. You can take it in writs. You can file an SLP. You can file a civil appeal. All that is there. But after this grueling session of multiple proceedings, once the matter is settled, let it be settled for all times to come. Friends, both this principle, as I have already shared with you, are applicable in both civil and criminal trial. Historical doctrine that we have discussed, it was applicable only to capital crimes, where a man could be hanged or his hands and legs could be just cut off. But in the modern doctrine, it is applicable to all criminal prosecutions and punishment. As far as res judicata is concerned, a final and binding order must have come. The decision must have been made on merits. When I say merits, parties did not appear before the court. Parties did not pay the fine given pronounced by the court. These are all non-meritorious issues for which a matter can be dismissed. A new case can be filed on the same cause of action. There should be a fair hearing also. And the earlier decision, right or wrong, is not relevant. Right or wrong, you have to go before the appeal court. Now the exceptions. Appeal is an exception. Appeal does not become a new proceeding. It is continuation of the same proceeding. India, I have already discussed the fundamental right and the statutory right. But when due process of law has not been followed, when there are procedural errors, when there are jurisdictional errors, when the merits of the case have not been discussed and deliberated upon, obviously a second prosecution can be filed. Now, for one set of allegations, there can be distinct offenses. For each offense, yes. Now, immunity only from proceedings before court of law and judicial tribunals. Your administrative authority, special courts, they can parallelly run another legal proceeding. Best example, a government servant who takes bribe. Now, he will have to undergo departmental inquiry, and there can be a punishment in that departmental inquiry. His salary may be reduced, he may be put out of the job. All these are punishments. But at the same time, this government servant can be prosecuted in a criminal court under the Indian Penal Code, under the other penal laws. It does not stand for this government servant to say, oh no, look, I have already been punished by departmental inquiry. These are two distinct proceedings. In our case, in case of medical negligence, proceedings before the regulator, the Medical Council of India, to a certain extent, it is quasi-judicial. It is by the regulator, the one who has given you the license to practice. But at the same time, the criminal laws in India say that negligence is a crime. So for the same wrong, for the same misdemeanor, a doctor can be prosecuted in a criminal code. Friends, understand the nature of proceedings. When the regulator is punishing you, the regulator is punishing you because the regulator obviously has the authority under the laws to punish you. The regulator has the privilege to regulate the profession, and as part of its privilege, as part of its duty, it is punishing you. Your right to practice has been taken away, or it has been suspended for a few months, years, or days. Regulator has that duty. Under that duty, that tribunal has punished you. But when we are talking about criminal law, in criminal law, there is no offense against doctors. It is simple negligence. Doctors come under that. Advocates may also come under that. 3048 talks about death by negligence, not death of a patient by negligence of doctor. Why has the negligence been considered as a wrong, as a crime? Public policy. Otherwise, every other person will go in the court of law and say, oh, no, I did not have an intention. I did it negligently. So no one is permitted to be negligent. Friends, there is a class of wrongs that is known as tortious felonies. It is a tort. Tort means a civil wrong, and a felony, which is a crime. Negligence is one of them. Defamation is one of them. So if someone defames you, you can file a criminal case against that person. At the same time, you can go in a civil court. You can ask for compensation, damages. So the purpose is different. The powers granted are different. So yes, this happens to be an exception. Not exactly an exception, but let us consider as an exception. Writ of habeas corpus, where some person has gone missing, it can be filed and refiled before the High Court, before the Supreme Courts, under Article 226, under Article 32, till the time one gets that person. These doctrines of res judicata, double jeopardy will not come in way. Public interest litigation, because it is not adversarial in nature. The one who has filed that litigation is helping the society. No one happens to be his opponent. So for the same cause, again and again, PILs can be filed. Friends, now we come to the second part of the topic. Unfortunately, friends, today in India, a doctor can be punished for a wrong. And I won't go to the extent of saying punished also. For an allegation of a misdemeanor. And what misdemeanor? Negligence. We don't have malpractice cases in India. Most of them are misdemeanors. Negligence. Moral fault is not there. You did not do it intentionally. A doctor can be tried in 7 courts. First court, we all are aware, every patient goes to a consumer court. The rationale behind it, way back in 1996, the Supreme Court of India in VP Shanta case says that the relationship between a doctor and the patient is that of a consumer and service provider. You are a consumer. You can go in a court. You are a service provider. The punishment happens to be compensation granted by the court. Highest one, 1 crore rupees. I have already shared with you that negligence happens to be a felonious tort. Before a civil court damages for all criminal harassment and agony that that person has faced. And that person can even be tried in a criminal court of law, prosecuted. Then we have the medical council, the regulatory body. And over and above that, if you happen to be a doctor practicing in a government hospital, in a government setup, the State Human Rights Commission, the National Human Rights Commissions are there. Adverse comments are passed. Compensation is given to the patient. And these patients from government hospital can also approach High Courts and Supreme Court. Under Article 32, Article 226, file writs. Because the state has not been able to protect their life and limb, Article 21, fundamental right is violated. And from different high courts, we hear about compensation being granted every other day. Friends, a Clinical Establishment Commission has come, thanks to the Clinical Establishment Act. Many states have not implemented, but one big state, West Bengal, has implemented. At the district level, I don't know what to call these, quasi-judicial, quasi-administrative, but all political appointees are there. And this happens to be an additional forum, an additional stick with which the doctor can be beaten. Does it bode good for the patients? What is the patient interested in? Let us assume there was a negligent act done by the doctor. Doctor must be punished, no doubt about it. But a patient who runs to these 7 courts, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, is he also not getting punished? Are these courts not increasing the trust deficit between a doctor and a patient? Why are we equating other misdemeanors with the medical negligence? Medicine, we want the patient to be treated. Is it not so? The very fundamental rationale for its existence. Are we not aware that a patient who does not trust in the doctor, the best of the medicines will not have any effect? What should a doctor do? The most brilliant minds have stopped coming to medicine as a profession. See the NEET scores, they keep on going down every year. The brilliant one who will come will go to greener pastures, other countries. The doctor-patient ratio is abysmally low. Many medicines are prescribed by the government. Let homeopaths, let yoga teachers, all of them prescribe modern medicine, good. But please think about these 7 courts where the doctors have to go to protect themselves. There are black sheep, please punish them. If your policy permits, hang them. We will see how many doctors practice thereafter. But why this harassment? 7 courts. You had an opportunity in Clinical Establishment Act. There could be 1 court. All other courts could have been done away with. Friends, we hope, especially, I'm talking about myself. I've always considered Dr. Neeraj Nagpal to be someone who really fights. People may say he fights for doctors, but I have another view about him. He fights for just causes. And to Dr. Neeraj Nagpal and to all other learned speakers and faculty members who are here, to the doctor community, to the patient community, to the society, to the nation, let me pose this question. Can we think about something like a medical tribunal? All cases of medical negligence, all cases of malpractice, can we refer them to such a tribunal? Friends, one of my specialization happens to be banking law. There is a debt recovery tribunal, debt recovery appellate tribunal. There is a Securitization Act. All of them brought into existence in the last 20 years. Why? Health of the banks were going down. When it's not brought results, let us not debate on that. But the policy makers, they thought about the health of the banks. Is the health of the general public not more important than the health of the banks? Tribunal in this country. Friends, that is all. Thank you. Thank you for listening patiently. There are any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bajpai. It was a brilliant...
I'm sure I have not exceeded my time.
No, sir, you have not exceeded your time. And I am so glad that you were asked to give this Dr. Lakshmi Garg oration. I had given you this topic with the specific queries in my mind, and you have answered them brilliantly. There is no question about it. I could not have had a better speaker for this topic than you. As protocol, oration, we do not allow questions, but we would love if you could join us for the panel discussion in the evening, and any questions, we will definitely like to grill you on those. But you have given us a lot of food for thought, and I really thank you very much for having taken this topic in all sincerity and with the way we wanted it to be taken. Thank you, sir. Nipun.